Suspicious activity. On January 19, 2015, a neighbor called police and reported suspicious activity at the Crowley residence. The caller refused to give a name, but claimed to live a few houses down from 1051 Ramsdale Drive. 2 days earlier, the bodies of David, Kamel, and Rania Crowley were found in the living room of their house. 15 minutes prior to the call to authorities, a GMC Blazer truck with army paint stopped in front of the Crowley residence. An unknown male got out of the truck and tried to enter the house. Unfortunately, the caller was unsure if the man was able to get inside. The caller did not provide the license plate of the vehicle. The entire incident of suspicious activity lasted 16 minutes and 38 seconds. The call was placed at 12:51 p.m., January 19th. At 12:52, Apple Valley Police Units 4949 and 4918 were assigned to the incident. Unit 4943 was also assigned to the incident at 12:53. Unit 4918 was the first officer to arrive at 1051 Ramsdale Drive in Apple Valley, Minnesota at 12:56. Unit 4918 noticed flowers on the front step. Unit 4949 arrived 2 minutes later at 12:59. Unit 4943 arrived at 1300 hours. According to the incident detail report, it was unknown who was at the residence or why. It is not known if the person who tried to enter the house left the flowers. The incident was closed at 13:08. If the caller's timeline is correct, this gave the unknown male about 20 minutes to enter and exit the house before police arrived. It's also not clear from this incident report whether or not the unknown male in the camouflage truck was the driver or passenger. When Detective Brian Bone finally spoke with friend of the family Chris Klein on February 17, 2015 at 1700 hours, the detective learned two very important pieces of information. First, Klein claimed he was in the house with David's brother and father. Second, Klein told him about a bullet hole in the living room ceiling. I had been trying to locate Klein, Bone wrote in his supplemental report, to learn why he had been at the Crowley residence on 1/19/15, as a neighbor had called in about a suspicious person at the house. Now, in the beginning of their call, Klein asked the police about the status of the investigation and speculated about how many rounds had been discharged at the house. Klein claimed he was in the house with David's brother and father. He indicated to me, Bone stated in his report, that he had been in the house since the discovery of the Crowley family at the residence. He said he had been there with David's father and brother and had seen that there were 2 shot rounds in the floor and roof. Prior to this conversation, I was not aware of a round being shot into the ceiling/roof. Detective Bone relayed the new information to Detective Sean McKnight, who then asked David's father, Dan Crowley Sr., for permission to enter the house to look for the damage to the ceiling. Now, the following day, on February 18, 2015, at 1500 hours, Detective Bone and Detective McKnight returned to the Crowley home. We immediately found what appeared to be a bullet hole in the ceiling, wrote Detective Bone, near the front door and adjacent to the living room. Bone also wrote about the possible trajectory of the bullet, speculating the shot must have come from the living room area. When the detectives looked for access to the attic, they discovered the attic access from the master bedroom closet was open. This had not been open at the time of our initial search of the house on 1/17/15, Bone reported. I contacted the BCA crime scene team and advised them of our findings. I requested they assist us in documenting the damage and assist in looking for the bullet in the ceiling and attic area. With the house secure, Detective Sean McKnight remained in the driveway while Detective Bone obtained the search warrant. The search warrant was signed by Judge S. Moynihan at 16:25 on February 18, 2015. Detective McKnight and Detective Tietz assisted me in executing the warrant, Detective Bone continued, with the assistance of the BCA crime scene team and Special Agent Olson with the BCA. During the warrant, they found what is believed to be a bullet in the attic area of the house. In the end, Detective Sean McKnight reported, the information given to Detective Bone could not be verified since we could not establish a definite connection between the reporter and the family. McKnight also wrote about the several bullets unaccounted for when authorities left the house on January 17th. During the initial processing of the crime scene, we knew that we could not account for several bullets that may have been fired from the gun used. McKnight stated the bullet hole was near the entryway in close proximity to where the Christmas tree had been. McKnight and Detective Michael Tietz assisted the BCA crime scene team in locating and documenting the location of the bullet. The crime scene team took measures of the bullet hole and collected the bullet for further examination. At some point, Joe Cooksley put his finger through this bullet hole. Chris Klein is the only reason why authorities know about the bullet hole in the living room ceiling and the bullet found in the attic. This bullet, item 57, does not have blood on it, only David's nuclear DNA. Authorities seem unable to tie item 57 to David's gun, more so they cannot put the gun in David's hand. In and out. Who was in the Crowley residence on January 19, 2015? Why are there so many different stories being told by those who believe David Crowley is guilty? For instance, Chris Klein claimed he was in the house with David's dad and brother. David's dad told Detective McKnight that was not true. Authorities respond by never following up on the differing stories. Mason Hendricks stated he was in the house with Klein. Of course, this was the same guy who claimed the reason why the public got so little information a year after the deaths was because the Department of Homeland Security was involved. Detective Gummert stated that DHS was never involved. Hendricks also tried to tell me that the FBI was involved. Again, Detective Gummert stated that was not true. Regardless, Mason Hendricks claimed to have seen the bullet hole in the house and claims to have been in the attic on January 19, 2015. Hendricks claimed he walked in the house with at least 2 other people that day. Hendricks looked up in the ceiling and immediately saw the bullet hole. I looked over to another friend of ours, Hendricks told me, and I was like, they couldn't fucking see that hole right there? How did Hendricks know police missed the bullet hole? More so, why didn't Hendricks or anyone else in the house with him inform authorities about a bullet hole, especially since they knew police didn't know about it? Hendricks was wrong when he claimed David's blood was on the bullet. He was wrong when he said it was proven item 57 came from David's gun. He was wrong when he said David's fingerprints were on the gun. He was wrong when he stated the bullet hole was blocking the Christmas tree on January 17, 2015. Hendricks was also wrong when he stated DHS and FBI had to, quote, sign off before the public got information from authorities. Was Mason Hendricks also wrong when he stated the pack theory came from one of David's parents? Hendricks stated that the pack theory originated from one of David's parents. I just want to make sure I say that twice. There's no evidence of a pact between David and Kamel to commit suicide and murder their 5-year-old daughter, but that hasn't stopped some from trying to connect those dots, which is fine. But if you're talking about that, then what you're talking about is not a double murder-suicide. At that point, you're talking about a double suicide-murder, and that would go against everything we're seeing here, even the official theory, all right? So even if that's true, it's one more reason for the case to be reopened, even though I highly doubt that that's true. But we got to go through every lead. Somebody's got to look at it. I don't want to discourage anybody who thinks that there is a pack theory. I just say, do your research. If you find the evidence, okay, great, go with it. If you don't, just make sure that it's, it's just phrased so that it's not fact and that it is pure speculation. Pure imagination is kind of what I call it, but again, that's just my view. David Crowley's neighbor Judy Prochnow still believes there was a pact between David and Kamel to ascend out of this world by committing a double murder-suicide. Still, Judy told me, I don't think Dan or Kate, I don't know for sure, but I don't think they didn't want to believe that David even did it. So I don't think they even thought of a pact theory. Mrs. Prochnow also tells a different story about January 19, 2015. No one was in the house before the cleaners, Prochnow explained to me. Chris Klein and them were in the house the day after the cleaners called about finding the bullet. To be clear, Chris Klein and others were in the house on January 19, 2015. The cleaners didn't find the bullet that rolled out of the carpet until January 20th, 2015. So, once again, Judy Prochnow is incorrect. When I reminded Judy that Klein was in the house on January 19th, she responded with, well, the cops might say that, but they weren't. Sounds like she's accusing the cops of lying. Judy believes Chris Klein was wrong about the date he was at the Crowley home. He just got the dates mixed up. The police record shows something different. And Klein confirmed that he was there on the 19th with the police. Who are you going to believe? Now, the date on Detective Bone's report and in the incident report are clear. I think it's Judy who got the dates mixed up, not anyone else. The neighbor, whoever called, Judy continued, took down the license plate of the cars that were there and called in to police. One of them was Chris Klein's, and I know one of them was Mason's. She's talking about Mason Hendricks. How would she know that? These are just a few examples of the many conflicting stories related to the events of January 19, 2015 about the David Crowley family. Based on a call about suspicious activity, Detective Bone went looking for a suspicious person, not persons. The suspicious activity tells the story of item 57, the bullet found in the attic 1 month after the deceased were removed from the house. Item 57 is one of the many reasons why this case should be reopened and re-examined, reclassified, undetermined, something to that effect. This is not a double murder suicide. It is not a proven double murder suicide. All right, and once again, thank you everybody for staying involved in this and trying to stay on top of this and trying to figure out what the real story is when it comes to the alleged double murder suicide that David Crowley committed. Even though we're finding no evidence to support that theory, it's important to understand that that is the theory that the police go with. Their final conclusion is exceptionally cleared. It's not that David Crowley is guilty of a double murder suicide, but based on the fact that they say exceptionally cleared, that is supposed to mean that, well, David's guilty. Okay, and the evidence that David is guilty is because they couldn't find evidence to show anybody else was. Apologize for the bad audio right here. I am driving in traffic and just another beautiful day. We can only do so much. We can only go so far. And let's see how far we can get. Let's see how close to the truth we can actually get. Because I don't believe that we've been given the truth. And I'm not satisfied with the conclusion that is not a conclusion. I'm not satisfied with that. And I'm sure a lot of you feel that same way. So going back over these articles and trying to make audio versions of this stuff, which will be included in my book, by the way. A lot of this will be in there. Might be a little revised, maybe shortened down, maybe even expanded on in some cases. All the information is very important, and it's important to recognize that there are evil people out there that are trying to deceive real researchers from looking into this case. They're trying to silence us. They're trying to silence you. Why would they do that if the truth is the truth is the truth? There would be no need for that. You would only do that if you're trying to hide something, if you're just a jerk, or if you're mentally ill. And sometimes it's all of the above. So we just got to be prepared for whatever comes our way. I pray about it. I pray God give me strength. I pray He gives you all strength. All of you out there who are really researching this, who are looking to find what the answers are. We're going to do our part. I'm going to do my part to help get as much information out there, to help you make it a little easier for you to research, if I can, to answer some of these questions that keep coming back. As usual, the book that I write is, I'm really writing it for me. The book is written for me so that I have data that I can always go back to in the coming months, when it's ever needed, to keep this case going until we get some real answers. That is the goal. The goal is not to keep the case going forever and ever. And the goal is also not to come to a quick conclusion just because that's the easier thing, and that's just lazy writing, lazy booking, as they would call it in the wrestling business. But Not going to have any of that. And people who are doing the lazy booking, lazy reporting, the lazy researching, they're going to get called out. They've already been called out. They know who they are. They know what the real deal is. They know they don't have enough to prove David Crowley guilty. The police know that. They're going with it. These other people want to go with it too. Go where you want. Go where the truth leads you. That's what we're going to do too. We're going to go exactly where the truth leads us to, wherever that is. And if it's God's will, we will get there. No doubt. No doubt. So, making this video, I wouldn't say it was hard, but it's just like, wow, I had totally forgot how many times Mason Hendricks lied. And you can add this to the list of people that have lied, where their stories have changed. Everything changes. They tell one person one thing and tell somebody else a completely different story. So, had a lot of that. And I think they were just hoping that we would just go away and fade off. But it's not going to happen. It's really not. You're talking about a 5-year-old child. Talking about a U.S. combat soldier. Talking about a young woman under 30. These are not things to be taken lightly. This is not something that we should take lightly. This is real stuff here. So, I would just hope that everybody kind of keeps that in mind. Again, sorry for all the loud background noise on this. I know it's a lot different than the audio that was playing, but I think it's just very interesting the way that so many people who consider themselves friends of David Crowley and friends of the family, and how they've treated this case, how they've treated truth, how they've treated lies, how they've treated the people that are asking questions and looking into this. Why come after us? Why bother us? Why do you care? Who cares? If there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to hide. If you make the accusation there is something to hide, knowing that there isn't anything to hide, now you box yourself into a corner. I think a lot of these people who think that David Crowley is guilty have really boxed themselves into a corner, because they cannot explain why. They cannot answer that question. All that they can do is try to throw it back and say, well, you can't prove that he's not. Well, that's not the question. That's the answer. That's the answer to your question. And that's why you fail. And that's why you lose. That's why you're in the spot that you're in. That's why your life is where it is right now. Because you're not looking at truth. You're not looking for truth. You're looking past truth. You're ignoring truth. You're living in a dream world. And eventually, that world is going to come crashing down. And the real world kicks in. Then what are you going to do? What are you going to do that day when you realize, you wake up, you realize, you know what? They're right. David Crowley cannot be proven guilty. They're right. There is no evidence to prove David guilty. That's going to happen. That day is coming. When that day comes, don't sit in the corner and cry. It's always time to repent. It's always time to see that light. And you will see it. Are you going to go to it? You're going to be blinded by it. As we move on here, waiting for the private investigator to finish his job, we're just kind of waiting on that right now, trying to just let the PI do his thing. Whatever he's got to do, go for it. Nobody wants to stand in that way. But I'm very, very curious to see what the private investigator comes up with, what the PI thinks. It doesn't mean we're only going to get one private investigator on the case, by the way. But as you know, it's costly, And Dan Hinnon has already put up his own money for this. So there are a lot of other things going on, and believe it or not, we can multitask. We can look into other things. We can have a real life, and we can spend time with our family and friends and look into this case. If other people can't, that's fine. I still see it. I still see a lot of people who are all in, want to figure it out sincerely, blah blah blah, and then they're gone. And they're gone. Just like that. We see it a lot. For many reasons, for many multiple different reasons. Not just one reason, but still, we're seeing it. And I just saw it. And we'll see it again. And I hope it's not a game meant to detract other people, to say, well, if that person's given up, you know what, I'm just going to give up too. But I get it. I understand why people wouldn't want to look into this case. That's fine. As long as they're not discouraging other people who do want to look into it or trying to stand in our way, then that's all fine. But this case is not for the weak of heart. You got to have thick skin. You have to be a strong person. And there's no excuse for people to be bullying anybody looking into this case. No excuse to come after them. Those people will be dealt with. No problem there. God's got it all. Don't worry about that. What you reap is what you sow. This is what I know. I've been looking into this for 4 years. Pacing myself, letting it age a little bit like fine wine, because I know whatever it is, wherever the truth is going to lead us, I know it's going to be God's will. Spending 4 years to find the evidence David Crowley is guilty. I wasn't looking for the evidence that he was innocent. I was just looking for the evidence that he was guilty. And all I found is evidence of why he's innocent. It's common sense. That's all it is. It's just common sense. It's nothing spectacular, nothing more, nothing less. It's just common sense. And you can see it. And this is how you will know the good tree by the bad tree. By what type of fruit that tree has. A good tree can only bear good fruit. So you'll see the bad fruit. You'll see the good fruit. You'll see the real people. You'll see the fake people. You'll see it all. I can't tell you how many people I've blocked, how many fake accounts are out there, the games that they play, the twisting words. These are not sincere people. They're barely human beings. Because a human being, a real human being, would not act like that. A real human being would take this case a lot more seriously. But you just have a bunch of junkies and just a bunch of weirdos who are just, trying to throw shade, trying to cast doubt. Because they know they can't prove David Crowley is guilty. All they can do is spread a little doubt about this or about that. And that shows you that they're not sincere people. Like I said, they're barely even people. The devil has many minions. Many minions. All trying to do his will. God puts roadblocks in their way. He puts us there for whatever reason. To find the truth. To seek this truth. To get justice. You don't have justice by just thinking David Crowley is guilty. It's not justice. You don't have justice for anybody by just accusing a man. Because that could be you one day. And all you people out there who really think that David Crowley is guilty, or who just want to trick other people into thinking that. When the shoe is on the other foot, maybe you'll think differently. When it's you who is being accused of something, maybe then you'll get it. Maybe then you'll turn from an adolescent into an adult. I hope so. I pray for it. So we will continue on. There will be more videos coming out. There will be still working on my book there too. Hope to get some new articles out, going through these old ones here. And we've been talking about doing conference calls more on a regular basis. I think that's going to be a little difficult just for schedules, but if I can get a couple hosts, so it's not just, me doing it, maybe I can get Catherine to do one of these weeks and maybe Dan to do another week, so we're kind of switching off and trading off and not all just, burning ourselves out, because I don't want to get burnt out. I think doing a weekly conference call or a weekly podcast would be great, but there's a lot of work that's involved in it if you want to do it right, if you want to do it justice. So it's something that I've been praying on. I've been praying about it. I will continue to pray on it, and I'm hoping maybe at least for the month of May we can do a conference call once a week every Friday. So I will keep you posted on that. Generally these will be Friday around 6 p.m. West Coast time, and we'll see how these go. But I would love to have some other hosts, some other people to kind of get involved, and that way if I can't make it, if Dan can't make it, if Catherine can't make it, maybe we could get one or two other people who can help kind of host with that. So may God bless you all. May Christ be with you. I know He is with you. And we'll end with this prayer here. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.